Hi everyone, thanks so much for being here. My name is Kat and I make houseplant videos here on Good and Planty. If you just so happen to absolutely love this video, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, or following me on Instagram. All of these things help me grow my channel like a plant. Today, I am super excited. I'm gonna be walking you through how I put together a plant shelf just like this one. It can definitely be a struggle to maximize your plant shelf while still making it accessible, cute, and cohesive, so we are going to talk all about that today. But first, thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes for creatives, creators, and many, many more. There are classes from indoor and outdoor plant care, sustainability, self-improvement, interior design, wink wink. I recently completed the class Interior Design Basics, Simple Steps to Perfect Your Space by Lauren Cox. And this class explained 4 principles of interior design, including color, balance, scale and proportion, and rhythm and repetition. And as a huge coincidence, those are some of the points that we're going to be talking about today, wink, wink, wink. You will see that these principles still hold true even when you're designing with houseplants. Skillshare is truly focused on helping you learn. There are no ads, they're constantly rolling out new premium classes, and everything is really, really well organized so that you can stay focused and creative. The first 1,000 subscribers that click the link in my description box down below will receive a 1-month free trial to Skillshare, and you can access the class that I mentioned and many, many, many more. Thank you so much to Skillshare, and now let's talk about plant shelves. I do want to tack on a real quick disclaimer that even with that Skillshare class under my belt, I am absolutely by no means calling myself an interior designer. The only credentials I really have are that I watched a lot of HGTV growing up, I spent a lot of time on Pinterest, and I do think I have a good eye, but you can definitely be the judge of that. So today I'll be sharing some good information from valid sources, but please take everything I say with a grain of salt because I am not an interior designer. Once again. I want to kick things off by talking about color because that is one of my favorite parts of putting together a plant shelf. Sorry, I think it was a bit dark in here, so I lightened it up. So with color, I think it's really important to have a color scheme in mind when putting together your plant shelf and collecting materials for it. And ideally, obviously, that color scheme should match the rest of your room. Plants are obviously green, so that's going to very quickly establish the dominant color of your plant shelf, and you just need to be considerate of that when adding things to your shelf. The rest of your color will come from both your accessories, like little knickknacks and stuff, as well as your pots, because obviously your plants have to live in a pot, and those pots are gonna add some color. For my personal shelf, I have a lot of terracotta, so that automatically added this really pretty burnt orange color, and oh my god, the sun. Okay, I'm putting the thing back up. So yes, one of my secondary colors automatically is this burnt orange color, which is super convenient because it is a complementary color to green. If you're kind of on the fence about what colors to go with, I definitely recommend going with green and orange if it goes well with the rest of your room. In the same vein, a lot of my plants on the shelf have pink variegation, so I added that into my color palette and kind of highlighted that. I sprinkled the pink variegation throughout the plant shelf, and I was super considerate of that when I was adding accessories throughout the shelf as well. My knickknacks, my propagation jars, my books that I strategically chose, all of those reflect the color palette of the green, orange, and pink, or just a simple neutral to add a little bit of cleanness to the plant shelf dynamic. Next, let's talk about balance, which is of course very important in any shelf design. One thing I learned is that symmetry and asymmetry is a huge component of balance, which is kind of obvious, but whatever. And I personally like to play with both symmetry and asymmetry in my plant shelf, in the same plant shelf. So you'll see that some of my shelves are almost completely symmetrical. For example, my very tippy top shelf has 3 similar vining plants with 2 watering cans in the middle. That is pretty obvious that it's symmetrical. My prop station on the bottom is also very symmetrical. However, on my top shelf, it is very balanced. One side is not heavier or more cluttered than the other, but it is not a perfect mirror of accessories and plants. The really fun part of plants, in my opinion, is that even if you have the same variety of a plant from the same genus, it is really difficult to make those plants grow completely identical. It kind of naturally adds this free-flowing, organic, I'm gonna really pull out my interior design words, element to your plant shelf, and it really makes it look lived in and alive. I really do like decorating with plants, even not just in the plant shelf. Balance is really important to keep in mind. It kind of does come naturally, I think, to a lot of people. You can very easily see if one part of your shelf is a little bit more empty than the other. So just try filling that out with either plants or accessories and knickknacks and all that kind of stuff. It will definitely add a cohesive feel to your shelf and make it look very intentional. Lastly, I want to talk about scale and proportion, which it is a little bit of a unique conversation when it comes to plants. Basically, the first thing I want to talk about is that plants obviously grow over time, which impacts their scale in proportion to your plant shelf. When you are putting plants in your plant shelf, just keep in mind their growth pattern because it will come back to bite you if you don't consider it. For example, my Dracaena, which you can see over here, used to live on this top shelf up here, but Dracaena grow very vertical and tall. So eventually the Dracaena outgrew the shelf height and was very smushed at the top, and it looked very smushed. It looked cluttered. Of course, it wasn't really great for the Dracaena leaves. I did move it down here, but then I had a big empty space on that top shelf, so I had to move a philodendron Prince of Orange up there. All of that is to say that your plant shelf will definitely have to evolve with time as your collection literally grows. If you don't want to be constantly swapping out plants and being mindful of their growth patterns, I do have some recommendations for you. I would look for plants that have pretty shrubby, compact, or vining growth patterns because those tend to lend themselves to plant shelves a bit better. Some specific examples include peperomia, philodendron, even the upright philodendron kind of takes some time to get really tall, so I think that's a decent recommendation. And then of course, any vining plant like Scindapsus or Pothos are gonna be super nice for your plant shelf. And I really love when vining plants kind of flow across multiple shelves. I think it looks really good. If you are in need of a vertical element, but you don't have the perfect vertical plant, I definitely recommend incorporating a moss pole into your shelf. You can see I did that right here with the Cebu Blue. If I didn't have the moss pole in there, there would be this chunk of awkward negative space. So the moss pole really fills that up, even though the plant hasn't grown to fully cover it yet. I also really like that it kind of sets a growth limit on that plant. Me personally, once the Cebu Blue grows past the moss pole, I'm just gonna propagate it, and that's pretty much it. Books are also a really great way to add some variety and height throughout your shelf. You can see that I did that in 2 spots on this shelf. That is another way that you can kind of incorporate your color palette as well. Be careful about, damaging your books. I tend to let my plants really drain out in the sink before placing them back, and I make sure that the saucer is completely dry. Otherwise, it will probably give water damage or stick to the cover of the book. So just be careful with that. And the last thing I want to talk about is I'm gonna really pull out the interior designer card here. And I want to talk about the rule of 3s, or sometimes people say 5s. I like creating a few little cohesive vignettes. I want to use a fancy word, but I forgot how to say it. One of those, you create a few little cohesive vignettes, and then you'll see that the whole shelf kind of comes together. I'll be honest with you all, this is my second time filming this video. The first time the mic wasn't plugged into the camera, and I think that round went a little bit better. You would think I'm more rehearsed now, but I'm not. Please be kind to me in the comment section. The last thing that I mentioned at the beginning of this video was rhythm and repetition, and unfortunately I won't be covering that in regards to plants in this video. I feel like a lot of those tips are redundant to what I already talked about, and this is not an interior design video. This is very much a plant video. I hope that the tips that I have already shared are a little bit helpful to all of you. I also really want to say that there is nothing wrong with just taking a shelf and shoving a bunch of plants in it and leaving it very simple and lush in that way. If you want to do it the luscious, simple way, I also think that's really cute and has its place in the home as well. Thank you all so much for watching and letting me like pretend to be an interior designer for the day. It was kind of fun. I pulled out some fancy words that I probably shouldn't have been using, but it is what it is. Please subscribe to my channel if you aren't already and you want to see more planty content from me. Please like this video, comment down below. Check out my description box. I have a bunch of fun things there, including the Skillshare link. So thank you again, Skillshare, for sponsoring today's video. And I think that's pretty much it for me. So thank you. Bye.